Hello, Nebraska, and welcome to this week's edition of the Retirement Compass, the show dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and here in the studio with me, we have Tim Kulhanek and Jeremy Gove. They are both with Stonebridge Wealth Systems, based right here in Nebraska. And gentlemen, I know you've put a lot of thought into each and every show. You love getting to meet with folks who call in from the show, and it's just great to be back with you and serving Nebraska. How are you this week?
Very good, thank you.
Doing real good.
Good to see you again.
Good, great to see you as well. Well, if you own employer stock in your 401k, you especially do not want to miss today's show. Did you know that there's several errors that you could potentially make that can have drastic consequences? And if you are able to get in front of these and not make these mistakes, it could save you thousands of dollars. And so that's what this show is dedicated to focusing on today. We're going to be talking about Net Unrealized Appreciation, NUA. And this is something that you guys have a lot of knowledge on, and I'm going to kind of let you take the reins of this, if you will, because
absolutely.
I want to make sure that we don't miss anything. But we've talked about on previous shows that you all engage in strategic tax planning, and this plays right into that conversation, right?
It absolutely does. And so what we're talking about today, as you stated accurately, is called Net Unrealized Appreciation. And again, this applies to folks who have company stock in their 401k plans, not outside in a brokerage account, but within their 401ks. And so for those that are curious, you could look up, it's in the Internal Revenue Code, so IRC section 402E4 defines what net unrealized appreciation is. And basically it says that it is the difference between the cost basis, or what you paid for the employer stock in the 401k, and the market value. So a simple example, I put $20,000 in, I work for ConAgra, or I work for West Company. That grows over time because I worked for 40 years, and it grows to $200,000. That corridor between the two, the $200,000 account value and that $20,000 I put in, that $180,000 gain, that's my net unrealized appreciation. So folks listening, watching, if this applies to you and you have company stock in your 401k, I need you to do one thing, and that is stop and listen, because this is critical. Because a mistake here, as Kristen said, could cost you easily tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, into the hundreds of thousands of dollars in unnecessary taxes. So that's what we're going to go through, is how to properly process, because it's a very complex set of rules, a net unrealized appreciation transaction.
You know, I know that this is something that you guys are passionate about, is people taking action. And as you were just saying that, it just kind of hit home. This is not a show that you can passively listen to. We want to give you actionable steps, concrete things that you can do to help yourself save potentially thousands of dollars if this is your situation. So, Jeremy, what are some of the general steps for someone to really utilize this rule and take advantage of NUA?
Yeah, so before we dive into that part, let's talk about what are their options. So if you have money in a 401k with your employer, we have three options really. We can take a lump sum distribution, so we can just cash it all out and pay the tax. Not recommended, but that's one option. The next option is I can take what I have and I can roll it over into an IRA.
Right.
If I have post-tax money, so money that I contributed to my 401k after I paid tax, that would go to a Roth IRA, but the bottom line is we can roll that over. The other option, and this is what we're going to spend a lot of time on, is I can roll the employer stock that I have in my 401k over to a brokerage account. Now that's something that's unique and different than what most people are talking about. It's interesting to me, we see all the time when people come in and they have their company stock that they worked at, like Eaton's for an example. They worked at Eaton's and they have Eaton stock in their IRA. And it's a lot of stock, like $1 million or more of stock.
Wow.
And you just look at that and you're thinking, man, that's probably a couple $100,000 of taxes sitting there,
right,
because that got rolled over to an IRA and it didn't have to. So let's just talk about, so that's, the three options that we can do, if we have money in our 401k. So if we take the lump sum distribution, obviously we pay the tax. If we, under the special tax rule, the way that it works, kind of at a high level, you take the money that you put in, so your cost basis, as Tim was mentioning, it's the money that you paid for the stock. So let's just say it's $100,000 that I paid for the stock.
Right.
And now the stock is worth $500,000, okay? So what happens is I roll that stock out into a brokerage account and I pay tax on that $100,000, my cost basis, right? And so the key though is I have to empty my 401k. The balance has got to be zero at the end of the year. And we'll talk more about that in, as we go through this segment. But.
Right. So I guess, Tim, how many people does this really impact? I mean, I know you see hundreds of folks at Stonebridge Wealth Systems. How many people would you say that this is really something that they need to be paying attention to and dealing with?
Yeah, so I did some research on this, Kristen. I found that there's a recent report from Morningstar that said around 40% of companies still offer employer stock as part of their 401k offerings. So, I mean, that's a lot, actually. Almost half still offer that. And you just need to look around. I'm making a list of some of the companies that came to mind. West Company was one here in Nebraska. Out of Kearney, W.R. Berkley Company, I've seen that. The Buckle, Union Pacific, ConAgra, Warner Trucking, Eaton. That's just to name a few. And there's a lot more, I'm sure, that I haven't thought about. And so, again, I think people just need to be cognizant that this is available. And really where the power comes in is, if you think about what Jeremy just said in his example, yes, you pay ordinary income tax, so just at your ordinary income tax rate, so 0, 10, 12, 22, 24, and so forth. Whatever your marginal bracket is, that's what you would pay taxes on that initial distribution of the cost basis. But the rest of it's all going to be long-term capital gains. Okay, that's the power in this strategy. So let's say you're in the 22% bracket. It's literally this simple. Do you want to pay 22% on the rest of that money, or do you want to pay 15%? Which one's better?
15%, please.
So what happens in a couple of years when tax rates go up and 22 goes to 25?
Exactly.
Do you want to pay 25 or 15? I can save you. If I told you I can save you 10% in taxes, and I know I can because it's right here in section 402E4.
Of the tax code, right.
Would you take that deal?
Yes.
I think everyone's going to say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we've talked on previous shows too that often with taxes, it's like folks are playing a game they haven't been given the rules to. And while all of this might be new to you, the good news is it's not new to folks such as yourselves. This is what you do day in and day out for people.
Absolutely.
Well, and to add to what Tim was saying, if it's managed correctly, if you look at the long-term capital gains, because that's what you get taxed at on this, it's a large number. It's, what is it, 94,000 that you get up to, roughly 94,000. So if you're drawing 50,000 out of that, you may not even pay any tax.
Could be zero.
Your tax could be zero.
Yeah.
So which would you rather pay, 25 or 0?
Right. 0, please.
Yeah,
all day,
exactly.
every day. Yes, I think most folks would for sure.
Exactly.
Well, we might have a lot of viewers who are newer to us, and you offer something called a complementary written financial plan. Talk about how that fits into what you're sharing on today's show.
Sure. So basically a complementary financial plan. I'll talk about what it is. What it is just a high-level overview of everything that impacts you financially. So we look at your income, your investment, your tax, healthcare, and your legacy plan. The income plan, yes, we need an income plan because that's what we live on, but we want to make sure this is a comprehensive plan. What it does is it keys in on each of those areas. So we're going to look at, okay, where could your income come from? How do we maximize your Social Security? How do we minimize your taxes? How do we make sure that your retirement plan is not derailed by a unexpected or unfortunate health type of cost? Because that's the number one thing that kind of derails folks. The number one largest expense in retirement is healthcare costs. We have to have a plan for that. But I think what we want to talk about is what it means. Once you've come into our office and you've had this analysis done, you're going to leave with confidence, knowing that your plan's been tested, okay? Thousands of different ways, good markets, bad markets, high interest, low interest, high taxes, low taxes. You'll know that no matter what happens, whether it's a change to Social Security or the tax code, that you have a solid plan that allows you to get back to focusing on what's important, whether it's going to the beach or playing golf or pickleball and with Jeremy or whatever it might be. Focus on what's important in life, friends, family, faith, that sort of thing, and let the team at Stonebridge focus on kind of the behind the scenes, operating that plan so you can live life you want to.
Tim, Jeremy, this is awesome. I'm excited. I know you have a lot more to cover regarding the subject of NUA, but on the heels of all that, all of this is just one piece of that comprehensive full financial plan. So again, this is for no cost, no charge, no obligation. It's simply an invitation to have a conversation to see how the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems can help and serve you. And if you'd like to claim your spot to be able to come in to receive your very own complimentary written financial plan, it's really easy. Simply call that number on the bottom of your screen, 866-256-7778. Or if you prefer not to talk to someone right now, but you do have your smartphone handy, you can simply pull it out, and if you open up that camera app, point, click, and scan that QR code down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary visit that way as well. Don't go anywhere. We have a lot more to get into here on the Retirement Compass. We'll be back right after this.
Our team is very unique, so we all have different gifts. You know, when you put it all together, it fits well.
Jeremy is definitely our most seasoned and fastest growing advisor we have. He's discerning, so he understands the way we want to do things at Stonebridge, to focus on the client and solving their problems, and that's really what he's passionate about.
I know Tim spends a lot of time making sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed for his clients. And he's not just satisfied knowing the 30,000 foot view, he wants to get down in the weeds and know exactly how it works.
The things that you buy, the stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds, that really isn't that important to the client. What's important to the client is, what does this mean for me? And at the end of the day, what it means is they can sit back and listen to the music. You know that you've got a team, not just one person, but an entire team behind you that's taking care of those things, so you can focus on what's important.
Welcome back, Nebraska. You're watching The Retirement Compass, brought to you by the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and here with me we have Tim Kulhanek, who is the co-founder, and Jeremy Gove, who is a partner. We are taking a journey today through something called NUA, Net Unrealized Appreciation. And in our first segment, you all really gave us a good 30,000 foot view, if you will, of NUA and explaining the ins and outs. Let's zoom in a little bit more, and I'd love to hear about some of the details of this strategy. And you all talk about there being 2 NUA tests. So can you go over what those are?
Yeah, so there's actually technically 4, but most people use 2.
Okay.
And so we call them triggering events. And so the triggering events are, the first one is you turn 59 and a half.
Okay.
So if you want to think of it this way, the light bulb goes on when you trigger that event. So we're 59 and a half, so our light bulb goes on. Let's say at 62, we take a distribution out of our 401k for whatever reason.
Okay.
That turns that light bulb back off. So now we can't do that.
Okay.
So what if we leave our employer? That's the next triggering event. So if we retire at, say, 65, we retire now, that's another triggering event. So now that's the next option. If you were 59 and a half, and let's say you left your employer and you started your own business and you became disabled, that would be another triggering event. So so disability is an option, but it's only when you're self-employed. So that would be the third triggering event. The fourth one is if you passed away. So your beneficiaries would have the option, and that's something that is missed a lot of the time because, you know, as a beneficiary, especially today, what happens? That money gets rolled over to an IRA, and we have how long? We have 10 years today to start pulling that money out. Well, if we could do the NUA and put that into a brokerage account, now we don't have that 10-year threshold anymore because it's in a brokerage account.
Right.
And so the idea behind that can be really powerful as well. So those are the triggering events, the 4.
The 4 triggering events. Okay, so what's interesting, and I love that you brought that up, it just speaks to the fact that how you make a decision in one area of your financial life can affect all the others. You can't afford to look at any of these decisions in a silo because it could have far-reaching effects for your beneficiaries in that example like you gave.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of examples where, as Tim mentioned, it could be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes that you're saving or not paying or giving to your kids.
Well, this is part of the reason why when we put a plan together, we always, we include all the 5 key areas of planning. And when we deliver our plan to our clients, we make sure that when it comes to the estate plan, like the first thing on there basically is a big stop sign. It says stop. Don't do anything, okay? Call Tim, because what happens is somebody passes away, and who do most people put as their personal representative or their trustee? What do you guys think?
So a child.
Yeah,
children.
right, another family member, right? Yeah.
So how often do you think those children are like estate attorneys or well-versed? And I mean, they're shifting the responsibility of transferring their entire estate onto the shoulders of the people that might be least qualified to do so. And so people panic.
And people are grieving on top of that, right? I mean,
absolutely.
There's all that plays into it.
And so they just try to, there's so much on my shoulders, I just want to get this done. Let's just roll this. I think I need to take this money out. So they roll it all to an IRA. This is an irrevocable decision. We call that a fatal error. If you do that, it's game over.
Irrevocable meaning you cannot change it.
Right. Yeah. Once it's done, it's done. That light's out, and you will lose that NUA opportunity forever in that example.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you mentioned the 4 triggering events. I know there's something here about it being a lump sum distribution. So talk about that.
Yep, LSD, lump sum distribution. That is a requirement. You can't go halfway on these things. So in other words, let's say that you Giving Jeremy's example, you had the $100,000 basis and the $500,000 account value, and you say, well, I just want to move out just the employer stock to a brokerage account, but I like my 401k, so I'm going to leave the rest of the money in there. Congratulations, you're going to pay income taxes on $500,000 this year because you did not follow the rules of a lump sum distribution. Everything has to be cleared out of that thing. It has to be empty, and by empty, I mean empty. There's a few exceptions, okay? So there is a PLR, which stands for private letter ruling, that talks about how, let's say somebody clears out their 401k, they do a lump sum distribution, but then they have some contributions because they reach, let's say, age 59 and a half. They do the lump sum distribution, they use the NUA strategy, and then on December 30th, their next 401k contribution hits the plan. The IRS has ruled on that before. That's not going to disqualify the NUA application. What will is if you do the first one where you just decide unilaterally, just because on a whim you decide you want to leave some money in there, that will disqualify the whole thing. If you did a partial where you didn't take all the money out, you said, okay, you got $1 million balance, take 500,000 of stock, move it to a brokerage account, and you move 250 to an IRA, it's not going to work. Again, you're still going to pay tax on all of that that company stock that moved out to the brokerage account. So that's critical. A couple other points on this, just to understand the power of this. Let's assume you had $1 million. And 300 of that, I know we're going over a lot of different numbers here. So 300,000 of employer stock with a basis of 50,000. You move that 50,000 to a taxable account, and let's say you remit at 25%. Okay, so federal plus state 25%, not bad. Tax on the 300,000 company stock would be $75,000 if you just roll it to an IRA and then cash that out. Using the NUA strategy, the 50,000 would be taxed at 25%, which is $12,500. The next 250, the gain, that net unrealized appreciation, we're going to assume since you're at the 25% bracket, you pay 15%, which is $37,500. At the end of the day, what does it matter? What matters is this. You save $25,000. Using our strategy that we're talking about, that we're educating the folks on the show about, they pay a total of $50,000 in tax versus $75,000. Again, this is just on $300,000.
Wow.
When you start talking about $1 million alone in company stock, now the last thing I'll talk about here is it's critical to make sure that this is a strategy best suited for folks with a low basis. What does that mean? That means the example that Jeremy gave where you put 100,000 in and it grows to 500,000. It doesn't make sense if you put 450,000 in and it's worth 460,000. You're not getting a whole lot of a benefit because then you're paying tax on the 450, right? So how do we fix that? Is what I'll close this segment with, if that's all right. So I had a client who worked for a publicly traded company. It used to be called El Dorado, but they merged with a big gaming company. It's called Caesars. So what got hardest hit during the pandemic?
Casinos.
Yeah.
Casinos got hit pretty dang hard, right?
Travel.
And
So
travel, right, I was gonna
Yeah.
say, yeah.
You think about hotels,
Right.
Hospitality, airlines, that
Right.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because they shut down. So his stock went from about $92 a share to $6.70
Whoa.
about a week and a half later. I've never seen anything like it. It
my
would drop
gosh.
25% a day for like day after day after day. It was
Yeah.
wild. Let's say he had that in his 401k, but his basis was, let's say, $50 a share. What strategy could he use? What do you think he could do? Using NUA. When it hits $6.70, call him up, hey, sell it. What do you mean? I like my company stock. I don't want to sell it. Buy low, sell high, not sell low.
Right. It seems counterintuitive, right?
Sell it and buy it back.
Yes, sell it and buy it back. 30
We
days
just
later.
reset his basis.
Wow,
Now it's $6.70. Today that stock's over $50 a share, I think, or $40 to $50. At one point in time, it was up to $100. So you reset the basis. Now, when we roll that out, we're going to have a long-term capital gain on a boatload of money and only pay income tax on $6.70 a share.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
amazing.
Pretty cool, right?
That is pretty
So I get
wild.
pretty excited talking about
Yes.
it. Again, I think it just goes back to working with the right team who
For
understands
sure.
that these strategies are available so you can
Yes.
execute at the right time and not make these fatal errors we're talking about.
For sure. And I know, when you meet with folks, they have these kinds of situations. This is when you put together the plan, you're able to see what strategies could best serve them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, I know we got a lot more to get into, but we got to take a quick commercial break. So if you want to claim your very own complimentary written financial plan, again, that number to call is 866-256-7778. Or again, you're also welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We realize that a lot of the stuff we're talking about today might be new to you, but the good news is it's not new to Tim and Jeremy and the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems. They would love to help and serve you. We'll be back right after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Tim Kulhanek and Jeremy Gove from Stonebridge Wealth Systems. We are talking today about utilizing a strategy that's little known to a lot of folks, the strategy of NUA, Net Unrealized Appreciation. This is especially helpful for folks out there who have employer stock in your 401k. And this is a very unique strategy as we've talked about today. There's very specific rules. You have to get them right. Not doing this correctly or making a mistake could cost you thousands of dollars. So really, there's some common mistakes that you have seen. You have 5 here. I want to go through them that you've really said folks can just not afford to make. So let's talk about those.
Yeah, so the first one we kind of jokingly call it quick draw McGraw. So
Quick draw McGraw.
Quick draw McGraw. Yeah, it's a little bit of a tongue twister. So a lot of financial advisors we found don't understand this rule that it's even exists. And so when they're looking at a 401k statement, they might see $1 million or $1.5 million inside of that 401k, and they're thinking, well, you're not very diversified because you have a lot of company stock in your 401k. So we need to roll this over to an IRA, and then we need to sell that stock, and then we need to diversify into other things to be a more diversified portfolio. And so we see that all the time when advisors just don't know that by doing that, you're literally costing your client potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. So that's the first one, quick draw McGraw.
All right. Next on the list, now there's rollovers that you can be done, right? But what if you get it wrong? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so the next one that I have on my list, so that first one we'd call one of the fatal errors because again, if you do that, I want to emphasize this is irrevocable. There's no, oops, you cut me some slack with the IRS.
Right.
The other one is, I referenced the 1972 top 5 Billboard hit by the Raspberries because it kind of applies here. Not in the exact same way they wrote it probably here, but you got to go all the way. You can't do partial. We talked about this earlier. In 2004, the IRS released private letter ruling. We call those PLRs. It was 2004-34022, indicating exactly that to one very sorry taxpayer. Hey, guess what? You didn't do the whole thing. You didn't do the lump sum distribution. Whole thing is disqualified.
Oh, that would be so tragic, right?
It's a big oops.
It's a huge oops, and one you cannot afford to make because it's irrevocable, as we already established.
Right.
What's next on the list for common mistakes to avoid?
Well, so the other one, as Tim mentioned, is not taking the lump sum, or let's say you leave your company stock in your 401k and you're 73, and now you start taking RMDs out of your 401k. Well, once you take a distribution, that disqualifies you. That light bulb goes off again, like we talked about earlier.
That triggering event.
That triggering event. So now, that's a disqualifying event now. So the only thing that you have left at 73 is probably to leave the stock in the 401k. When you pass away, your children may have the ability to do something with that. And so again, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It just means we need to do some planning. If, like Tim's example, if the stock went from $50 down to $6, maybe it makes sense to go ahead and sell it and roll it out. But
right. Well, I know real quick, because there's a story I want to make sure you get to, Jeremy, but let's hit on the remaining mistakes real quick, and then I want to have you share that with our viewers.
Yeah, I'll be real quick. So Jeremy kind of hit on this. And number 5 is forgetting to tell beneficiaries, or again, putting these decisions on the shoulders of the people probably least qualified, not having a trusted ally in your corner. Your beneficiaries can still take advantage. So oftentimes that's a non-spouse where they're going to have, like Jeremy said, they're going to be what's called a non-eligible designated beneficiary and only have 10 years to cash that thing out. If we do it right, we can avoid that and use that NUA. The other thing I wanted to talk about real quick was just not letting your emotions impact you. Sometimes people see the stock market gyrating and they're like, oh, I got to cash this out. And so they sell all the stock and don't buy it back.
Wow. Yeah. So again, that you have to work with someone who knows the rules, knows what to do, and when to do it is also a critical part of this conversation.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I hear a lot, I guess, is, can I afford to work with a financial advisor? Is it too expensive?
There's that misconception out there. Yeah.
There's a big misconception. Yeah. And when we're talking about stuff like this, it's kind of like, can you afford not to work with a financial advisor? And so I'll give you a great example. I had a client, he became a client. He was actually talking to 4 different advisors. And every advisor put together a financial plan for him. Here's what you need to do, here's when. He was getting ready to retire. And he had stock, as I was doing the analysis, he had company stock that he paid $30,000 for. And when I reviewed his statement, it was worth $1.2 million. Wow. Now, it was a company that really benefited from COVID, so it accelerated really fast.
Right.
And so every plan that he had gotten was, let's just roll that over to an IRA. So he ended up having almost $2 million in his IRA, or in his 401k. So to a lot of advisors, that's a great, account. Let's roll that over to your IRA and let's start managing it. We'll diversify that stock out. Well, if he would have done that by I guess the process that we did, we took that stock, we rolled it over to his individual account. We paid tax on the $30,000 this year, and now we're gradually selling that stock off and taking advantage of that lower tax bracket, which is 0. And so we saved basically about $185,000 in taxes just with that one decision.
You cannot afford to make these mistakes, and you cannot afford to not work with a professional. So we encourage you, again, reach out. They would love to help and serve you. We love you, Nebraska. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with you next week.